morning students, I am your history civics teacher. My name is Mrs. P. Rodney. Today students, we will start chapter number 4. It is on page number 32. The Turkish invention and the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. Here it is written the Turkish invention and the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. So we will come from first topic. The first topic is the Turks. The Turks' cultural validity and brilliance of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 18th to 9th century CE was followed by a decline in its political power by the end of 9th century CE. The once mighty Abbasid Empire disintegrated into a number of independent states ruled by the Turks who had earlier served in the armies of the Caliphs. Two important states established by the Turks were Ghazni and Ghori. Mahmud of Ghazni. Now I will tell you about Mahmud of Ghazni. Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni was a powerful and ambitious ruler. He invaded India 17 times. How many times he invaded India? He invaded India 17 times in the course of 25 years. And that is 1001 to 25 CE. He wanted to build a large and well-equipped army to expand his kingdom and also to protect it from his enemies in Central Asia. To fulfill his aims, he needed money. The fabulous riches of the temples of North India attracted him. At that time, North India was divided and there was no unity. The ambitious Rajput, deeply absorbed his multiple rivalries, failed to understand the gravities of the situation. Mahmud of Ghazni attacked India and plundered its riches. Now, some important raids. It is on 1001 to 25 CE. Now I will tell you about war against Jaipal. Mahmud first defeated Jaipal, the Hindu ruler of the Punjab, whose territory extended from the Punjab to present-day Afghanistan. Jaipal was forced to pay tribute. Unable to bear the humiliation of the defeat, Jaipal burned himself to death. Now I will tell you war against Anand Pal. Anand Pal, Jaipal's son. Who is Anand Pal? He is Jaipal's son and successor, formed an alliance with the rulers of the important states of Western and Central India. They made elaborate arrangements to repulse Ghazni and protect their states and culture. The grave threat of a foreign invasion inspired the people to rise to this defense of their land. It is said that even the women sold their jewels, metalled their gold ornaments and sent their contribution for distant places to help in the war effort. Anand Pal and his allies were defeated. This opened the war for future inroads into the heart of India. Later, most of Mahmud's attacks were directed at the temple towns of North India. A temple town was not merely a religious center, but a treasure house of fabulous riches as well. Hundreds of temples were plundered and destroyed. The attack on the Somnath temple in Kathiawar was Mahmud's most ambitious and profitable expedition. The Indians put up a stubborn resistance to save the magnificent temple, which was the richest and the most scared temple of the Hindus. After 3 days of fierce fighting, the entire defense force of 50,000 soldiers lay dead. The victorious Mahmud returned to the capital with immense treasures including valuable works of art. Mahmud was a great military leader, but he did not want to establish an Indian empire. His interest lay in territorial expansion in Central Asia. Punjab was the only Indian province he annexed. Sultan Mahmud drained away India's vast treasures and used them to transform Ghazni into a magnificent capital city. Ghazni was adorned with splendid mosques, libraries, and a museum. The port of Ghazni glittered with sparkling pearls, rubies, and diamonds. Mahmud was known as the idol breaker and a bandit operating on a large scale in the context of Indian history. He was a patron of art and learning and enjoyed company of learned scholars and poets. The Persian poet Ferdowsi, author of the great epic Shahnama, and the great Persian historian and mathematician Al-Biruni were among the eminent scholars. Mahmud Reza exposed the weakness of the northern state and paved the way for the conquest of India. The empire of Ghazni disintegrated rapidly after Mahmud's death for about 150 years. That North India was free from foreign attacks. When Mahmud Ghori invaded India at the end of the 12th century CE, there was 5 major Rajput kingdoms in North India. The Rathor of Kannauj, the Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer, the Salonkis of Gujarat and the Parmaras of Malwa and the Chandelas of Bundelkhand. Now I will tell you something about Mahmud Ghori. Towards the end of the 12th century CE, a new kingdom based in Ghor arose in northwestern Afghan. Mahmud Ghori, the ruler of Ghor, decided to conquer India and enrich his kingdom with India's wealth. He first got the frontier areas of the Multan, Sindh, Punjab under his control. Now, some of the important battles. First Battle of Tarain. First Battle of Tarain in 1917 CE. It is fought in 1119 CE. Ghori attacked Prithviraj Chauhan, the Rajput ruler of Delhi and Ajmer. Prithviraj inflicted a crushing defeat on Ghori in the First Battle of Tarain. Ghori returned the following year to avenge the humiliation of his defeat. Now, the Second Battle of Tarain. Prithviraj organized a confederacy of Rajput chiefs to meet the challenge. Unfortunately, the most powerful Rajput ruler, Raja Jayachandra of Kannauj, refused to help him. The armies of Rajputs and the Ghori clashed in the Second Battle of Tarain in 1192 CE. This time Mahmud Ghori routed the Rajput army. The defeat of Prithviraj marked the end of Rajput rule in North India. The kingdom of Delhi passed into the hand of Mahmud Ghori. The throne of Delhi was occupied by Muslim ruler from then till 1858. 2 years after the Second Battle of Tarain, Muhammad attacked Kannauj and killed Jayachand. He annexed the Indian territory to his empire and appointed Qutbuddin Aibak as his viceroy before returning to Ghor. Qutbuddin captured the fort of Kalinjar and Bundelkhand and Ahilwara in Gujarat and extended Ghori's empire to other parts of North India, such as Mathura, Gwalior and Malwa. Another great general of Ghori, Mahmud bin Bakhtiyar Khilji, swept across Bihar with his army and overthrew the Sena dynasty of Bengal. Many Buddhist monasteries and libraries were wantonly destroyed by the invaders. The invention dealt a death blow to Buddhism in India. A few monks managed to escape to Tibet with their manuscripts. Buddhism continues to flourish in Tibet. Mahmud Ghori was not a great military leader as Mahmud of Ghazni, nor did he patronize art of learning like him. Yet some historians regard him as the founder of Turkish kingdom in India with its capital in Delhi. Now the next topic is the Delhi Sultanate. The period between 1206 to 1526 CE is known the period of the Delhi Sultanate because the rulers were known as sultans as they ruled from Delhi, their capital city. Next, I will tell you about the Mamluk dynasty. Muhammad Ghori died in 1206 CE. He had no heirs, so his viceroy declared themselves independent in different parts of the empire. Qutbuddin Aibak assumed control of Muhammad Ghori's Indian possessions and laid the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate. A former slave of Mahmud Ghori, he rose to position of a general in the army by dint of merit. The dynasty founded by Qutbuddin Aibak is referred to the Mamluk or Slave dynasty. The other name of Mamluk dynasty is Slave dynasty. Now I will tell you something about Qutbuddin Aibak. Qutbuddin ruled for about 4 years from 1206 to 10 CE. According to court historians, he was just a generous ruler who looked after the welfare of his subjects. He was known as Lakshbaksh. The another name of Qutbuddin Aibak is Lakshbaksh. The meaning of Lakshbaksh is giver of lakhs. He treated the Hindus well. He broke several ancient temples to collect wealth as the material required to build mosques and other monuments. Qutbuddin built 2 mosques, one in Delhi and another is in Ajmer. The Qutub Minar was another monument started by him and completed by his successor Iltutmish. Firoz Shah Tughlaq added the 5th and the last story on it. The Qutub Minar is one of the most famous monuments in India. Some historians believe that it was used as a minaret by the muezzin to summon Muslims for prayer. Now I will tell you about Iltutmish. Iltutmish in 1210 CE, Qutbuddin died from an accidental fall from a horse. Though he was succeeded by his son Qutbuddin, was ultimately replaced by Iltutmish by his son-in-law. Iltutmish was son-in-law of Qutbuddin. Iltutmish was ruled till 1210 to 36 CE. He was a capable ruler. He first consolidated his position and established his position through shrewd and clever handling of all those who challenged his authority. The Turkish nobles who had challenged his claim to the throne were suppressed. The revolt of Khilji, governor of Bengal, was crushed. The power of the extension rebel, the ruler of Ghazni Multan, was destroyed. A new danger presented itself when the Mongol chief Chengiz Khan reached the border of India in pursuit of Shah of Persia. The Shah fled towards India in search of shelter. Iltutmish politely refused to give him refuge by doing so, save India from the threat of Mongol invasion. After getting rid of his enemies, Iltutmish defeated the Rajput rulers of Ujjain, Ranthambore, Malwa and Gwalior. He brought the whole of North India up to the river Narmada under his control. The caliphs of Baghdad recognized him as the sovereign of India. Iltutmish recognized the finance and revenue department of the Sultan. The empire was divided into several provinces called Iqtas. Each Iqta was administered by an officer or noble called the Iqtidar, who collected the revenue and maintains the law and order. He was the first to mint gold and silver coins. Iltutmish completed the Qutub Minar and also built his own tomb in red stone in Delhi. He was a person of art and learning. Learned scholars driven into exile from various parts of Asia found refuge his court. Iltutmish is regarded as the founder of the true of Delhi Sultanate, and he transformed the loosely knit Gauri territories in India into strong, well-defined, compact state. Now I will tell you about Razia Sultan. Iltutmish nominated his daughter Razia Sultan as his successor. His noble did not like the idea of being ruled by a woman. So Prince Rukuddin Firoz Shah was made the Sultan. He was a pleasure-loving and worthless ruler. After a brief reign of 7 months, he was deposed and Razia ascended the throne. Razia was a brave, intelligent and just woman. She possessed all the qualities of great monarch. See, she sat in the open darbar and transacted business. She dressed like a man, rode horse and led the armies into battle. The welfare of a subject was her primary duty. The provincial governor rose in revolt against her. Razia tried to crush the revolt but was defeated and imprisoned. She won over the leader of rebels, Altunia, by marrying him. The attempt to recover the throne of Delhi ended in failure, and both were killed in 1240 CE. After 6 years of internal strife and turmoil, some nobles placed Nasruddin Muhammad. It was placed in 1246 to 66 CE, the youngest son of Iltutmish, on the throne. He was a virtuous person but weak and unexperienced. So Ghiyasuddin Balban, the leader of the group of nobles, began to manage the affairs of state. Balban ruled the Sultanate for 20 years on behalf of Nasruddin. Now Ghiyasuddin Balban. Nasruddin died in 1266 CE and Balban ascended the throne of Delhi and ruled for 20 years from 1266 to 86 CE. Sultan Ghiyasuddin Balban was an experienced and a capable ruler. He believed in the theory of divine kingship. The king was God's representative on earth. It is said that Balban never smiled and no one was allowed to laugh or joke in the court. The nobles had to kneel and touch the ground with their forehead to show their respect. Balban made the monarch absolutely and all-powerful. He recognized the army's strength, both the infantry and the cavalry, and erected forts at strategic places. An elaborate spy system was set up. A tribe that robbed travels and created serious law and order problems were ruthlessly suppressed. Security and stability replaced lawlessness and disorder. These peaceful and stable conditions were favorable for the development of agriculture and trade and commerce, led to the economic prosperity of the kingdom. Balban mercilessly suppressed the ambitious Turkish nobles. The governor of Bengal, Turgil Khan, revolted against the Sultan and began to rule independently. Balban, an old man of 70 years, personally marched against him. Tughril Khan, his entire family, all his supporters were killed. Balban never left his capital to conquer new territories, although he had a well-occupied army. He was sure the Mongols would take advantage of his absence and invade his kingdom. He adopted several measures to strengthen his defense against the Mongol invasion. He appointed his own son as a governor of frontier provinces. New forts were built and old ones repaired. The armies was always kept in a state readiness. Balban died in 1286 CE. 4 years later, the Mamluk dynasty came to an end. The Delhi Sultanate passed into the hand of Khilji dynasty. Now students, I will tell you some values and skills. Both men and women should be given equal opportunities to learn and grow. There should be no gender bias. Razia Sultan had all the qualities of a great monarch, but the nobles did not like the idea of being ruled by a woman, and she was even naturally overthrown. Students, now the chapter ends here. Write down important words. It is on page number 38. Write down in your copy and write down, match the column. It is on page number 39. Thank you. Stay safe at home.